Hello everyone, this is Ohio Dan. Today's video topic is one that was suggested by a viewer that I haven't really covered on this channel per se, at least not specifically, and that is the danger of female aggression. The type of aggression that you can usually see expressed by women and how it's a great deal different from what you usually get from men, and why it is particularly dangerous in the society that we have today for a variety of reasons. And I'm going to get into what those reasons entail with this video. So we're well served to keep in mind that female aggression, what you typically see from women, even today when women are taught that they can do things like a man, and some women will get in your face and try to get physical with you. Sometimes that doesn't end well for the woman. If the man fights back, it doesn't end well for him either. But at least you can see this masculinized version of women acting aggressively. But that is not typically what we see from women in most cases, even now. It usually has a much different way of manifesting compared to aggression from men in ways that can be highly detrimental, that men are not usually or always aware of, that they don't take into account, and that can lead to a lot of really negative consequences for them in the end. Aggression from women tends to be more subtle and less immediately harmful than a guy threatening you with physical harm, wanting to fight you, saying he's going to kick your ass or whatever, being right in your face. Those are, of course, challenging situations to deal with as well. But at least you know it's coming. At least you know what it is when it's happening. Whereas with women, there's more of this delayed response, and there's more of this ability to tap into a very massive pool of resources that she has available to her, basically through violence by proxy. And because they have these greater resources at their disposal to come after you, should they choose to take any seriously aggressive action toward you, there is a much greater long-term threat of you getting your ass kicked by guys that want to be white knights, or her involving the police in some way, or going to your boss, or even just ruining your life on social media. That is the type of aggression that you normally see from women. It's just as aggressive in terms of its intent. It may be more passive-aggressive, but it's just as aggressive in terms of trying to take you down, trying to hurt you. We see what women do after a breakup when there's children involved in many cases, where they'll weaponize the children against them in a way that is also meant to have this aggressive application, this aggressive purpose in mind of bringing you down and hurting you. When women act aggressively, it's rarely direct. Even today, we do see that more often, but it is just as potentially harmful, if not more so, because women tend to have this massive pool of resources, really the entire culture and legal system in many cases behind them, at least in the Western world as it's structured today. This level of disconnect between actions and consequences, where a woman can plan her move against you and use other men and use the state, use the family court system, use the domestic violence laws, although that's just another example of the police getting involved, but use the entire, again, as I've said, cultural apparatus against you. This lack of obvious connection between cause and effect, action and consequence, makes it seem like they're not as dangerous. But this is another major factor in underestimating the potential outcomes of female aggression. This is another factor that goes into men thinking, oh, well, this woman's physically weak, this woman can make up stuff against me all she wants, and I feel secure because what is she going to do about it? Well, she can get other men to come kick your ass. She can get other men to try to kill you. She can get you arrested and make up a whole bunch of stuff to make it seem like you're dangerous so that the police take violent action against you. She can lie to you in the court system. And the problem, of course, the bottom line is that when women take these actions, there are rarely proportional consequences for those actions. There's always some excuse. It's either your fault or men's fault. some other guy's fault. It's never up to them to take accountability. We see this all the time where adult women can do sexual things with teenage boys and just get a slap on the wrist when the guy would be locked up for decades. We see this with domestic violence, where the woman can be violent toward the man and everybody thinks it's funny. We see this when it comes to so many different arenas, making up stuff in the workplace to get you fired from your job because the woman doesn't like working with you for whatever reason. There are so many negative consequences that can take place due to aggressive female behavior and just general belligerent wanting conflict with you and being able to tap into all of these resources in order to accomplish that you really do need to be aware of red flags. You need to be vigilant, right? Because of these factors, more vigilance is usually necessary to anticipate or detect female aggression compared to aggression from men. If women decide, for example, to plot revenge against you for some real or imagined slight against them, anything can be the catalyst, and you've got to be paying attention. You've got to recognize, okay, this woman seems to be acting against me. I'm going to stop dealing with her. I'm not going to have any contact with her. If there's criminal activity going on, maybe I need to be the one that potentially gets the police involved. Do whatever you have to do to protect yourself, but realize that women, because they have so many resources at their disposal, realize that they can do a lot of damage to your life, up to and including ending your life via violence by proxy. Once in a situation as a man, in this environment, in this context, where a woman or women, a group of women are acting collectively against you because they just don't like you for some reason, you may not have an adequate means of defending yourself, regardless of her physical stature or the appearance of the woman or women in question. It's not going to matter at that point because it was never really about a physical confrontation with her. It's about her using the weapons that she has against you. If you have children with this woman, she can basically continue to use those children against you. If there's a divorce or a nasty breakup, if it's a coworker, Me Too and Listen and Believe can be used against you. If it's a woman in your family, she can basically turn other people in your family against you if they're foolish enough to listen to her. When women decide to take aggressive action, it's not in your face, usually. It's not something that you're going to be able to detect immediately, but it's important to be able to detect it soon enough to essentially distance yourself from this woman, to protect yourself as much as possible at that point. Most likely, I would say, by having nothing to do with that person at all. And again, if you have to take kind of an aggressive action in order to counter whatever she's doing by going to the police yourself, by going to your boss, saying that this woman's making false accusations against you. It depends on who you're dealing with, what your boss is like, what your family is like if it's a family situation. You may have to distance yourself from more than one person in your life in order to resolve the issue. But it's very important to be aware of the power that women have in this situation once they get the ball rolling, once they're willing to connive and manipulate you or the people around you into taking some sort of action against you. You're not going to go up against her. You're going to go up against the resources that she has available to her with white knights, simps, the police, your boss or your job being on the line basically, your friends, anybody that she can use against you. That's the female way of coming after you. That's the woman's version of aggressive behavior usually. Again, we do see more of the overt, I'm going to get in your face and challenge you stuff. That is worth mentioning because it is something we see more often now. But that's women trying to act like men, more or less. That's not the conventional version of female aggression. And in that situation, you know you can't really defend yourself beyond the bare minimum to basically stop her from punching you. Beyond that, if you get aggressive at all with her and you try to basically teach her not to come after you, you're going to be the one that gets potentially beat up by other men or arrested in that situation as well. But at least that situation's obvious as it's happening, that this woman is toxic, that this woman is acting aggressively against you. But the conventional model for how most women take aggressive action is usually a passive-aggressive version of this. It's usually, I'm going to manipulate, I'm going to lie, I'm going to get other men to make your life miserable, I'm going to do whatever I can to take you down. And unfortunately, men still, for the most part, don't want to recognize this threat. They don't want to believe that a woman can be as much of a threat to them as a man because of the physical lack of direct action on her part, or because they've just been taught that women are nice and women don't do bad things in this way. Frankly, that's what we're all taught from the time that we're young, unless we wake up to reality when it comes to this issue, when it comes to, broadly speaking, where things actually stand between men and women. It's not so much whether men or women are more aggressive on the whole, but the subtle and pernicious way that the female version of aggression typically manifests that causes major issues, especially when combined with a lack of consequences on her end. That's the other major element to this, is not only do women have all of these resources available to basically try to ruin your life or to get other men to physically harm you, but there's not really much on their end as far as jail time or as far as, oh, she lied, now her female friends are going to go after her. That's never going to happen. I mean, I'm sure that there's an exception to that somewhere, but women don't have to really worry about physical violence being committed against them the same way that men do. And that's just where it stands. The women that are basically willing to do this kind of thing really don't face any consequences for their actions to a large extent. They can engage in whatever sexual activities, they can be physically violent, although again, that I think is not typically what you see, but they can do that and get away with it to a large extent. They can be abusive in the home. They can make up lies against you that are found out to be flat out lies that may have cost you your job, that may have ruined your reputation in the community. And ultimately, what actually happens to her? Very little. You see this today all the time with these professional athletes that basically got together with the wrong type of women, and then it turned out that they had all these false accusations made against them that were found out to be false, that were found out to be baseless and just a money grab. And at best, the guy sues her for defamation in a civil court. But nothing actually really happens to the woman beyond that in many cases. Again, you have adult women in this culture that can basically rape teenage boys, get pregnant from that, and when the boy turns 18, in some cases, be able to sue him for back child support. Right? That's how little protection there is for men once you are in conflict of any kind with a woman, where she can just basically do whatever she wants and get a slap on the wrist for it. I realize that that example is not exactly aggressive behavior. It's more of sexual deviancy, just deviant behavior. But still, the end result is that women get a slap on the wrist for most of this kind of stuff. And so continued miscalculation of a man's vulnerability to aggressive behavior by women regularly leads to bad situations and outcomes for the men involved in ways that are usually preventable if the threat is observed accurately for what it is early on enough. In other words, if you can see that this woman's lying about you, you know that this woman is trying to put you in a situation where you can be physically threatened. You can see that this woman is playing games with you. You just stop having contact with that woman. Overall, that's probably the best way of handling it. If you have to get law enforcement involved, you know that it's going to become a police issue anyway, then maybe you go to the police first. I remember when affirmative consent on college campuses was a relatively new thing, probably a decade ago, and we talked about this in the men's community. I think Raging Golden Eagle and a few others basically said that if you know a woman is about to make an accusation against you to the campus tribunal, pretty much, that could get you kicked out of campus, you come to that situation first and potentially make the accusation against her of sexual abuse. That way you have the first card being played at the very least. In some cases, you might have to do something like that. But for the most part, you just stay away from women when they act aggressively against you. You distance yourself from their crap as much as you can. It's unfortunate that they're not really going to face consequences for the things that they do, but it becomes more of a better she does this to some other guy than me type of situation, because you really don't have control over punishment, right? You don't have control over the consequence that she faces. What you can control is the type of people that you're willing to deal with in life. What you can control is who it is that you're willing to associate with. And I think that's really, in most cases, the best solution. But it's important to be able to have the vigilance to detect when a woman is acting aggressively, when she's plotting against you, when she's lying to you, trying to get other men to come after you, turning your friends against you, playing these little games, making accusations about you in the workplace, making accusations about you to the police. Even if it doesn't result in anything long term, you know what's going on, and this is just as much, if not more, of a threat than a guy coming up to you and just starting to try to punch you, right? This is more pernicious and can actually have more of a negative long-term outcome, and it's important that men not underestimate, as my viewer, fellow Buckeye, mentioned, do not underestimate the capacity for female aggression and how that can have a very detrimental effect on your life if she is successful with her plotting, if she's successful in the actions that she's taking against you, especially through violence by proxy that women have available to them in great quantity now, given the overall state of affairs in our society. And be very vigilant if you are going to deal with women and get close to any of them in terms of your interactions, in terms of how well you know them. Be vigilant for their version of aggression. Be vigilant about what actions they may be taking against you, and be prepared to basically cut off that connection if it turns out that she is acting aggressively against you, and just take the actions that you need to take to protect yourself. Because she may not be a physical threat to you as an individual, but her resources and the lack of punishment on her end means that in many cases, a woman that's acting aggressively against you may be more of a threat than a guy physically threatening you, and may be more of a threat, especially in the long run, toward your overall well-being and life outcomes.